Welcome back, folks, to Random Rod Shop. This is working out pretty nice, guys. Man, this thing's a mess. So let's get into it. Welcome back, folks, to Random Rod Shop. Hope you liked the last video on putting the brake booster on. Today we're going to work on installing the steering shaft so we can actually steer this thing. We get that done, we're going to get back on the fuel system. If you watched the earlier video, we had some trouble with the fuel tank when we were trying to put the cab mounts on. So we're going to go on a search to see what we can do about a fuel system. So let's get into it. We're going to start with, I'm going to show you what the Tahoe steering column looked like, and I'm going to show you what the International steering column looked like. And what we need to do is somehow marry these two together with maybe some random parts that I found in the pasture and make a steering column for this truck. So let me show you the Tahoe steering column. So this is the Tahoe steering column. This end connected to the steering box, this end connected to the steering column, and actually, I like this. The problem is it's too long for the International. So if I stick this on here, you can see that it's just too long. Here's the International end of the International steering column. So we needed to come up with something else. So here's the parts that we have to work with at the moment. I mean, if we need something else, I'll go chasing in a pasture for something else, but I think this is going to do it. Here's the original Tahoe steering shaft. Here is the original International steering shaft. This piece right here is actually out of an S10. Now, the interesting thing is, it looks like the Tahoe shaft, and I've tried it on there, and it actually fits and bolts up. The piece to be concerned with, or just to take notice of, is the difference in lengths between the Tahoe and the S10. So the thing to note here, if you're trying to swap these shafts, so the Tahoe will fit on the S10. The thing to note there, put the Tahoe top shaft section onto the S10 bottom shaft section. The U-joints are not in alignment. So the clocking is different between the Tahoe and the S10. Honestly, I don't know if that makes any difference for a steering shaft. On a drive shaft, it's critical, but just for general practice, I want the U-joints in alignment. So that's going to be part of our design criteria, is our two U-joints I want in the same plane. Okay, so I'm going to put you back on the tripod, and we're going to continue on kind of looking at the parts we got and trying to figure out what pieces we can put together here to make this thing work. Okay, to continue back on, we know the Tahoe is too long. Right. The S10 looks like it will help us out because it's shorter. So let's get rid of the Tahoe stuff for right now. I know that the top of the International looks like that. And I know that I need a U-joint up here somewhere. So I've got this. If I remember right, this came off a Fox body, right? I just whacked it off, and that's almost a normal double D shaft, except that it's got just a little bit of cutout on this side. But it doesn't fit tight, but it fits pretty. It's a good fit inside that, so you can sort of start seeing maybe a solution here. Okay, so what if I did something like that? So you got the S10 bottom section. I've got this, which keeps the collapsibility of the International, plus adds the additional collapsibility from the S10. So that should be that should be good there. And we know the way that sets up in there, I'm going to need 2 U-joints. So let's set this up in the International and see if this sort of looks like it's going to work. Okay, turn you off. I'm going to reposition the camera. All right, I think I got the camera up there where you can see what I got going, what I'm thinking about anyway. So I'm going to stick the end of the S10 shaft onto the Tahoe gearbox. Then we need to, man, that sun's coming through that door. Let me go shut that door. Okay, so let's see how this concoction fits on the Tahoe / International here. So we'll put the Tahoe or the S10 lower section onto the Tahoe steering box. Now we've got the old International piece. And we've got the Fox Body Mustang U-joint. Well, there's not enough room to get it in there. That highlights the problem that we need to keep in mind. It'd be nice to be able to get this out after we get it installed. So let's see here. All right, let's try this a different way. Well, conceptually, that looks like it'll work. I can go ahead and cut these flanges off, and I can plug weld that U-joint into this shaft. And that leaves this piece up here, because this end will just bolt together. I'll put you on the, I'll take this to the bench, and I'll show you what I'm talking about right there. But this connection point here is pretty straightforward. That connection there, we just plug weld the round shaft into the tube. That should be fine. I think the trick is to figure out how to mount this up here. So let me get this back off. Let me get it on the bench, and let's see if we can figure something out. Okay, guys, I think we got it figured out. I'm gonna take the camera off, and I'm gonna set it up on the table here and shine it down on top of these so we can talk through what I've come up with. Okay, so what we've got is we've got the S10 lower section. I cut off a double D reducer because this is a 1 inch and this is 3/4. 3/4 is standard. So I cut off a reducer, so this will go into here. And you can see I had to drill a hole twice because I needed to move it down. All right, so that's going to fit like that. Then I've got the collapsible shaft section. Then I've got the Fox Body U-joint. Going to plug weld this, but keep in mind that I need the U-joints in the same plane, so I'm not going to plug weld this until I put it in the truck and get everything together and get the steering wheel straight. Because this, right, the steering wheel is going to be connected to this piece, and so I want to make sure that this is the last thing that gets welded after I get it in there, and the tires are straight and the steering wheel is straight. The last piece is this little spacer. The steering column shaft is hollow and round, so and this is a double D, right, a 3/4 double D. So I've got this spacer that's going to go on here. This is going to weld to the steering column, and then I've drilled a hole through the steering column shaft to bolt into this. So that's what we've got. I'm going to take you off. I'm going to go over and kind of show you what I've done in terms of where I drilled a hole and what I've cut off. And then we're going to set this thing up there and let's see how it looks. See if steering wheel's straight, wheels are straight. Then we're going to weld it in. Okay, so you can see that I cut off the old rag joint connector off of the international steering column, and I drilled a hole through the hollow steering column shaft. And what's going to happen there is that this double D off of this Fox body, off the double D U-joint off the Fox body steering, is going to be held in place by this big threaded bolt here. And this collar is going to be welded to the international steering column. So we'll have two forms of containment. We'll have the double D to prevent rotation, and we'll have this big bolt. And I'll get a different bolt that's got a better shoulder on it, but just for mock-up, I wanted something that I could hold it in place. So the bolt will hold it, the double D will hold it, and then when we get down here, this has got 4 plug welds on it, and we've got the double D and we've got the bolt down in this section. So that's what it's going to look like. So I'm going to kind of move the camera back a little bit and try to get you guys so you can see it. I'm going to weld this thing together. Okay, well, we got steering now. Still got some, still got to find the right bowl for it. And clean it up, grind it, paint it, you know, all that stuff. Pretty happy about that. It's a clean installation. The fender well, the inner fender well shouldn't get in the way of anything. This is working out pretty nice, guys. Okay, so I think I'm gonna move to the tailgate. That thing needs quite a bit of work. So I'm gonna set up a table and let's just kind of scope it out because it'd been sitting in the pasture for, I don't know. We had a flatbed on the truck it came off of. It was my wife's grandpa's truck, and we put a flatbed on it and used it for a service bed. So that bed's been sitting in the pasture at least for 30 years. So I have no idea what works on this thing and what doesn't work on it. Obviously, we're gonna have to play with the hinges and stuff like that, or the latch, but let me get the table set up and let me get that tailgate in here and let's have a look at it. Okay, I got it in here. Man, this thing's a mess. The spot welds are busted on the side, it's bent, it's rusted, corners are bent. Actually, let me back up. It's not very rusty, it is just bent all to hell. I'm assuming none of that works. Looks like at some point this was setting in the mud. You can see that it's bent and cracked here. This is caved in. This is all bent up. Corners bent. So we need to decide what we're going to do to attack this thing. I'm kind of at a loss at the moment in terms of where to start. So I apologize, but I'm going to have to sit down and think about this for a little bit. I don't want to sit here and film 20 minutes of me sitting on my butt thinking about it. So I'll get back to you. Well, folks, it's the next day. While I was pulling the videos off the camera last night, I learned that I didn't actually film the work I did yesterday on this tailgate. About 2 or 3 hours of work. Actually, probably 3 hours of work. Don't have an excuse. As I get older, I'm thinking I resemble this welder over here more more every day. It has a duty cycle. I must have used up my duty cycle while I was sitting on my butt pondering how I was going to attack this. I don't have any other explanation. Anyway, I'm going to walk you through what I did, kind of explain why I did what I did, and then we'll get on with the rest of the work. So the first interesting thing about this tailgate is that metal you see right there, that's all one piece of metal, right? So they stamp it, they stamp the center section, I assume, and the center section kicks down, the center section kicks down, up, gets bent around, and spot welded back here. Same with the back. That center section kicks down, gets bent up, and spot welded back to the center right there. One piece of metal. The end caps are spot welded in. So there's 2 end caps, 1 piece of sheet steel, and that's pretty much it. There's there's accessory brackets and stuff that's spot welded on, but that's an interesting design. So our challenge was to get the dents out of the tailgate. But the easy way to get dents out is if you can get to the back side. So what I decided to do, you can kind of see it there, but I ended up deciding to cut the spot welds on this lip, and I took a zip disc and just cut along the top edge. So that gave me that. That made it a lot easier to get in there and beat all the dents out that was along that edge and along the top edge. You can see I've still got some work to do on this, and there's still a few dents and dings, but it looks significantly better than it did. The corners all 4 corners were beat up. I spent most of my time trying to rework this hinge section on each end. At this point, I've got it back into shape to the point that I really would like to mount it on the back of the pickup, definitely before I weld in this piece here, because I'd like to, the thing was so bent, I better have it on the back of the bed before I finalize any of the welding on it. So that's where I left off. And you know, we're gonna clean this up and paint it and do what we can. There's some rust on it. We're gonna have to cut that out, but I think I'm gonna finish this up when it's on the back of the pickup so that I know that when I'm done, it's gonna fit. I haven't done any work to the bottom side yet. This is actually where the hinges go, if you wanna call them hinges. But I really wanna put this on the back of the pickup, which leaves us to where we're at right now. Let me put the camera back on the tripod. We need to get the tailgate mounted on the back of the pickup. This is actually the tailgate hinge that International uses. Nothing inherently wrong with the hinge. This is 1 1/8" solid round bar. This is a 1/4 inch steel, bracket. Not any more or less substantial than the Fords or Chevys or anybody else in this era. Problem with the International, as I'm finding out, is they mount this to the back of the bed. It's on the upright of the bed itself, and the metal they mount it to is the same thickness as what I pulled off this tailgate. As you might expect, as the tailgate gets used and you load stuff on it and you step on it, actually in my mind, driving a thing on rough roads with the tailgate open. So you could sort of envision that this would move and it might crack out this. Yeah, I've got 3 of these, right? Remember I said I had my wife's grandpa's truck, I got my dad's truck here, and then we got a parts truck down there. I thought it was no big deal. I needed one of these, so I went looking on the other 2 trucks we got. They're all broke out. I'm gonna take you off the tripod. I'm gonna take you down, I'm gonna take you to the back side of the truck here, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. And the fact that I've got 3 beds and only 1 bracket left probably is a strong indication it was a piss poor design. So part of our task is to figure out how to reinforce the back of the bed so this thing doesn't break out. I'm gonna take you off and we're gonna walk back to the back of the pickup and I'll just show you. Okay, get some light on this. Here's what we got. That's where it mounts. Put this down here. There we go. Okay, so here's what we got. This is the one I pulled off and it mounts right here on the inside of the bed right there. You can, I don't know if you can see that, but that's just standard thickness sheet metal, and there's no reinforcement inside that bed. So that mount right there transfers all the load from the tailgate on a single thickness of sheet metal. Let's look at the other side. You can see the result of that design. There we go. So that's what we've got. And I've got 3 pickup beds that all look the same. Again, the problem is that the mount is on unreinforced metal. Now the other problem with this corner is, as you can see, it's had just a little bit of a whammy. It's kind of crooked. So we're gonna have to spend some time on this corner. So my first task is figure out how to reinforce these corners so that this doesn't happen down the road. I'm gonna see if I can get a piece of cardboard or something, and I'm gonna try to template the other side. And we're probably gonna have to do some straightening on this before we actually can put the reinforcement in there. But I don't know, we're gonna make this up as we go along. I'll get back to you. Okay, I'm back for just a short update. We've made a command decision. I don't know if it's gonna be a good one or a bad one, but we gotta get this corner straightened out. So I'm gonna turn the camera around. Let me show you what I'm gonna do. So this corner has a really sharp crease right there. I'm not convinced I didn't hit it with the front end loader at some point. Kind of what it looks like. doesn't really matter, but this is putting a lot of pressure on the entire bed corner right there. And you can see the metal is not really flat where the hinge goes. The problem is this bed corner is pulled in this direction. So what we need to do is we need to push this bed corner back that way so that the area where that hinge is going to mount is flat again. And it's not even flat up there. This whole corner is pushed in. So anyway, we need to get that mounting surface flat, and the only way to do that is to get this bed corner pushed back that way. So what I'm thinking is, if I relieve some of the stress caused by that crease right there, that should allow me to move this thing a little easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little zip disc, I'm going to cut along that edge right there, I'm going to cut along that edge right there, and then I'm going to split that crease right down the middle. That should open that up and let me relieve some tension in there, and hopefully will let me pull this thing back. That's the plan anyway. We're going to give it a shot. Ain't going to know if it works until we try it. And it's just steel. We can weld it back together. So let me get the zip disc. I'll set you on a tripod, and we're going to cut this and see if it relieves any tension. I went and scratched my pile and made a pattern to the piece I need back there. Right, so that goes like that into the bedside, and then I cut them out of steel and I threaded these so this whole piece will act as a support for the new tailgate mount. So what I need to do now is I need to make another one of these. I found a scrap piece of steel here that looks like it's the right thickness, so I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to cut this, mark this out, cut it out, and I'll get back to you when I get all the shenanigans done here. Okay, I thought you guys would be interested in this. So, hinge on the International pickup, right? It's a shouldered stub on the bracket there, but the hinge is, the main point of the hinge, if you will, is 1.1 inches. I've got a drive shaft out of something. Honestly, I don't remember what it's out of. Looks like it's out of a bigger pickup, so that means it's probably out of Chevy if it's around my place, so I don't know. Anyway, when I was going around looking for shafts, it looks like that section right there is pretty close to being the same as the section right there. So I'm going to whack that section out so that I can mount that on this piece that I'm trying to make, and we'll be done. Have our second mount. All right, I'm going to do some cutting. Okay, I got a 1/2 cut, and I thought, well, if you haven't seen what the inside of a CV joint looks like, this would be a good time. That shaft's got a big gear on it, and there's a bunch of balls that ride in some receivers, if you will, for the balls. The upshot is, even if the CV joint's making a lot of noise and it's wore out, these things almost can't come apart. Not that they won't, but they have a hard time coming apart. So they'll last even when they're making noise. Not that you shouldn't replace them, but they're not a catastrophic failure type thing usually. Okay, I want to put this in the vise. I'm going to whack that off, and that'll give me my little stub shaft. So you saw me make all the parts. I just bolted those in. Right, the stiffener plate is back here. This is the original tailgate mount. Here's the tailgate mount that I made, and there's the stiffener. So what I learned was, this is a royal pain in the butt to put in. You have to, as near as I can tell, you have to actually lift the tailgate up, put the ends in, and then bolt everything together. So it is difficult as a single person job. So if you do this, grab a helper. They make life a whole lot easier. I think I'm going to call this a video. This is getting pretty long. Before we go, I want to show you what the what the final rabbit is on this. So let me lift up the tailgate. So you see that clearance or lack of clearance? I don't ever remember having a tailgate on this truck. I don't think my dad ever had a tailgate for this truck. And we hauled round bales, we hauled just a little bit of everything. It would appear that over time, the bed sides have sort of tilted in. So I'm going to get the porta power out and stretch this thing apart and try to get this bed to fit. That's the next video. Right now, I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe, make a comment, hit the like button, you know, do all that stuff. We're trying to grow the channel, so at this point, subscribers help. I think that's it. I'll see you next time.